Concord Space Base, located in the remote corners of the Milky Way, was humanity's last line of defense in the galaxy. The soldiers stationed here were not ordinary. Each one of them was an elite warrior, specially trained alongside their dog partners. These dogs were not just loyal companions, they were genetically enhanced, their combat abilities significantly improved. The human dog units had defended the galaxy from countless invasions over the years. The cold steel corridors of Concord Base were eerily silent, as if foreshadowing an approaching storm. In the control room, Captain Leland sat, his eyes fixed on the massive screens in front of him. Griggs, his loyal companion and battle partner, lay quietly at his side. His eyes were closed, but his ears were alert. Just like Leland, he could sense that something was about to go wrong. Leland's face bore the weight of years of battle. His closely cropped hair, almost bald, was marked with scars and lines that told the story of his life. He had spent most of his years in battlefields, leading humans and dogs in life-and-death struggles. He had lost many comrades over the years, but the bond he shared with Griggs was different from the rest. When they looked at each other, a single glance was enough to communicate entire commands. Griggs acted on instinct, while Leland provided the strategic genius. Together, they were a perfect team. An abrupt beep broke the silence, snapping Leland out of his thoughts. Ivy, working at the main radar screen in the control room, turned her monitor towards the captain, her face clearly showing concern. "Captain, 2 large ships are approaching on the radar," Ivy said, her voice serious. "Drax. They've come again." The Drax were humanity's most lethal enemy in the galaxy. These massive creatures, with 4 arms, muscular and armored bodies, struck fear into anyone who faced them. While they were technologically superior to humans, humanity's intelligence and strategic brilliance had helped resist their attacks for years. But Concord Base was a critical point. If it fell, the rest of humanity's defense lines would collapse. Griggs rose from his position, his fur standing on end. He could instinctively sense the threat. Leland patted his head. "Calm down, boy, we've got time," he whispered, though he knew that time was running out fast. Leland quickly stood and walked over to the control panel. Ivy was fully focused on the massive ships displayed on the screen. Leland placed a hand on her shoulder, signaling her to stay calm. "How much time do we have?" "About 12 minutes," Ivy said, her voice shaking. "But they look bigger this time. 2 ships, both larger than usual. They'll push the shields to their limit." Leland squinted at the screen. The Drax had grown stronger with each attack, but this time something was different. They looked more organized, as if preparing for a strategic assault. He didn't know how long the shields would hold, but by his estimation, they had only a few hours at most. If reinforcements didn't arrive in that time, the base's defense would collapse entirely. "Prepare everything," Leland ordered. "The shields will hold as long as they can. But if they manage to break through, we stop them here." Ivy nodded and quickly activated all the base's defense systems. Griggs stood right behind Leland. He knew what it meant to fight by his side. This wasn't just another drill. This was life or death. Leland turned to his dog, giving him a reassuring look. "All right, boy, it's time to get to work. The attack begins." Red alert lights flooded the base. Soldiers rushed to their positions, while the dogs waited beside their handlers. The shields absorbed the first laser blasts that echoed across space. Explosions lit up the exterior of the base, shaking the metal structures. Leland, alongside Griggs, took their place on the front line of the defense. On the radar screen, the enormous Drax ships were closing in fast. The rate of laser fire increased, and the pressure on the shields grew with every second. Ivy's voice echoed again. "Captain, the ships are approaching." The Dracs are trying to breach through the underground tunnels. Understood, Leland said. Everyone hold your positions. Griggs, stay sharp. Griggs growled in response, looking back at his master. His fur was bristling. His keen sense of smell had detected the danger long ago. He and Leland were ready to meet the fight head-on. As the Drac ships descended to the surface, the deafening sound of their massive metal legs landing on the ground filled the air. The first Drac soldier stepped in front of the base, and chaos erupted instantly. These towering creatures, with their gleaming armor, reflected the lights as they moved menacingly with their 4 muscular arms. Leland raised his laser rifle and aimed. "Griggs, ready," he commanded. His dog was waiting for the signal. The Dracs launched their attack in a well-organized manner. The first wave crashed against the outer walls of the base, while laser fire tore through the sky. Leland signaled Griggs to flank left as one of the Drac soldiers rounded the corner quickly. Griggs, with lightning speed, pounced at the massive creature. His claws sank into the alien's throat while Leland's laser shot pierced the Drac's armor, causing it to collapse with a short explosion. "That's it. Keep it up, Griggs," Leland shouted. Fighting alongside his partner was always a perfectly coordinated dance. As alarms blared through Concord Base, every unit swiftly moved into battle positions. Soldiers were deployed to their posts, their dogs waiting beside them. Griggs stood silently right behind Leland, every muscle tense. His fur stood on end. His instincts had already sensed the looming danger. Leland knew this battle would be tough, but this time something was different. The Dracs were coming with a bigger, more organized force. But no matter what, they had to defend Concord Base. Leland grabbed his radio and addressed all units across the base. "Is everyone ready?" he asked, his voice firm and resolute. A series of affirmations echoed through Leland's earpiece. But the subtle hesitations between responses made it clear. Everyone knew this time would be different. They all felt the weight of the looming battle. Leland took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes toward the direction the enemy would arrive from. The Drax's massive ships were breaking through the upper layers of the atmosphere, descending slowly to the surface. The sky was lighting up with bursts of fire as their plasma cannons charged. The base's shields shimmered as they absorbed the first wave of impacts. Drax laser fire echoed through the void, striking the metal fortifications of the shields, which vibrated with every blow. But Leland knew the shields wouldn't hold forever. "The Drax will try to infiltrate through the underground tunnels," Ivy warned over the comms, her voice calm but urgent. Leland nodded. "Understood, Ivy. Prepare the defenses below as well. Griggs, stay on the right. We'll hold them off here." As the heavy doors sealed shut, Leland and Griggs took their positions on the front lines. The laser cannons positioned around the base began firing at the first wave of Drax soldiers descending from the sky. The massive ships landed with thunderous metallic thuds, their massive legs shaking and cracking the ground beneath them. When the first wave of Drax soldiers hit the ground, chaos erupted. These massive creatures, with their 4 muscular arms and armor-plated bodies, caused the ground to tremble with each step. Their red eyes scanned the battlefield, hunting humans with predatory intent as they moved with deadly speed. Leland knew the moment of direct confrontation had arrived. He raised his laser rifle to his shoulder and gave Griggs the command to move forward. "Griggs, take the one in front," he ordered. Griggs shot forward like a bolt of lightning. His claws slashed at the vulnerable points in the Drax's armor. The Drax, caught off guard by the dog's speed, tried to counterattack with all 4 arms, but Griggs swiftly dodged underneath, slashing at the creature's legs. The Drax staggered as Griggs tore into it, and with a well-aimed shot from Leland, a beam of laser pierced through the creature's chest. The Drax collapsed to the ground in a heap. But this was just the beginning. Several more Drax soldiers rounded the corner, and the chaos intensified. Leland spotted a group of Drax trying to break through from the rear. He immediately radioed Ivy. "Ivy, more Drax are coming. They've breached the southeast side. Redirect all units there." "You heard him. Reinforce the southeast." Ivy repeated calmly over the comms, and soldiers across the base scrambled to reorganize their defenses. But the Drax had already managed to enter the underground tunnels. Every Drax that made it inside the tunnels posed a deadly threat to the humans and their dogs. After clearing the enemies on the surface, Leland and Griggs quickly retreated underground. The narrow, dark tunnels gave them a surprising advantage. While the Drax were powerful, their enormous size limited their mobility in such confined spaces. This gave the humans and their dogs a chance to outmaneuver them. "Griggs, this is our chance," Leland whispered, his hand resting on the dog's fur. Griggs moved quietly ahead, controlling his breathing as he stalked through the darkness. Leland's strategic training, combined with Griggs' instincts, gave them the upper hand in these tight spaces. When the first Drax unit entered the tunnel, Griggs sprang into action. His small but agile body turned him into a lethal weapon in the confined quarters. He quickly scaled the wall and leaped onto the Drax's head, his claws sinking into its neck. As the Drax staggered, Leland fired a precise shot, taking down the creature in seconds. But the threat was far from over. More Drax were advancing toward the tunnels. Leland narrowed his eyes, focusing on the heavy footsteps echoing through the passageway. "Griggs, more are coming," he whispered. As the sound of their footsteps grew louder, another Drax unit emerged from the darkness. Griggs immediately took position, waiting silently. With a signal from Leland, the dog shot forward, pouncing on the nearest Drax and slashing its throat. Meanwhile, Leland targeted another Drax, firing with deadly precision. The narrow tunnels allowed Leland to focus his shots, and the enemies were swiftly neutralized. But the Drax were numerous and formidable. Just as Leland turned to face another enemy, he noticed a massive Drax arm swinging toward Griggs. In that split second, everything seemed to slow down. His heart skipped a beat as he feared the worst. But Griggs rolled under the blow at the last moment, narrowly escaping injury. For a moment, Leland was frozen by the thought of losing his partner. "You all right, boy?" he whispered, gently patting Griggs' head. Griggs responded with a low growl, quickly getting back into position. It was his way of saying he wasn't giving up. Leland and Griggs continued to fight, holding off the enemy together. Their bond, stronger than ever, would be the key to surviving the relentless onslaught of the Drax. As the intensity of the battle escalated in the underground tunnels, every corner of Concord Base was shaking under the weight of the Drax invasion. Leland and Griggs could feel the vibrations in the metal walls around them, realizing that the fight wasn't confined to just the tunnel they were in. The Drax had surrounded the base from all sides. Still, Leland was determined to defend it, no matter the cost. He and Griggs had survived many dangers together, but this time they were reaching the limits of both their physical and psychological endurance. From the darkness of the tunnel came the heavy, raspy breathing of the approaching Drax squad. This time, a larger and more heavily armored group had infiltrated the tunnels. As Leland reloaded his weapon, he noticed Griggs first standing on end. The dog's ears were perked, focused on the depths of the tunnel, ready to strike at any moment. "Griggs, this might be the last wave," Leland muttered, though deep down, he knew it wasn't true. He said it more to motivate himself than his companion. Griggs growled softly in response, taking position. From the darkness, the first Drax emerged, its massive strides echoing down the tunnel. Its armor was thicker than any enemy they had faced before, and it carried enormous weapons in its hands. Leland narrowed his eyes, aiming his weapon, but he knew this would be their toughest challenge yet. Griggs waited silently, poised to strike at his master's signal. "Now!" Leland shouted, signaling Griggs to attack. The dog shot forward like a bullet, launching itself at the giant creature and sinking his claws into its throat. But this Drax was smarter and faster than the others. With one swing of its arm, it knocked Griggs to the ground. The dog rolled mid-air and hit the ground hard but quickly recovered, immediately going for the creature's leg, targeting its weak spot beneath the armor and throwing the Drax off balance. Leland didn't waste the opportunity. He took aim and fired a laser shot. The beam pierced the Drax's head, and the beast collapsed. But they had no time to rest. 3 more Drax warriors were storming down the tunnel, this time attacking in a more coordinated manner. Leland exchanged a glance with Griggs. Both were exhausted, but neither was ready to give up. "We're not done yet, boy." "Ready?" Leland's voice was firm. Griggs responded with a growl, signaling that he was still ready to fight. The first Drax charged at them, and Leland dodged to the right. Griggs sped to the left, trying to confuse their enemy. Leland fired sharp, precise laser shots to keep the creature's arms at bay, while Griggs clawed at the beast's legs. But this Drax was even more resilient than the last. Leland's shots only scratched its armor, and when Griggs bit into its leg, the creature let out a roar, swinging the dog violently away. The sight of Griggs hitting the ground sent a chill down Leland's spine. "Griggs!" Leland called, rushing towards his companion. Griggs struggled to his feet, wobbling slightly, but the fire in his eyes showed he wasn't ready to surrender. He took position at Leland's side once more. "You okay, boy?" Leland knew Griggs was hurt, but the determination in his dog's eyes reassured him they weren't finished yet. With their final assault in mind, Leland quickly devised a plan. He signaled Griggs one more time. In perfect sync, they attacked again. Leland targeted the weakest spot in the creature's armor with his laser, while Griggs moved swiftly to distract it. A loud blast echoed through the tunnel as Leland's shot pierced the Drax's chest. The creature let out a final grunt and crumpled to the ground. But the battle wasn't over. Ivy's panicked voice crackled over the radio. "Captain Leland, the shields have collapsed. The Drax have breached the base." Leland's face darkened. The moment he had feared had arrived. The outer defenses had fallen, and the Drax were now inside the heart of the base. But that didn't mean they would give up. Crouching next to Griggs, Leland looked into his dog's eyes. "All right, boy. One more time. We're going to fight together one last time. We need to end this here." Leland radioed the remaining units in the base. "All personnel, fall back to the internal defense lines. We're going to stop the Drax right here. Griggs and I will be at the front." Griggs, drawing courage from Leland's resolve, sprang into action once again. He was tired, but his loyalty and dedication wouldn't allow him to stop. Together, they fought their way through the inner tunnels of the base, eliminating every Drax squad they encountered. But the enemy was overwhelming in both numbers and sheer force, attacking in relentless waves. As they neared the central command room of the base, they encountered the last major Drax unit. These creatures were larger and more deadly than the others. For a moment, Leland held his breath. They needed to gather themselves for one final blow. "Stay sharp, boy," Leland whispered to Griggs. The dog stared back at him with calm determination. As they advanced on the enemy group, the narrowness of the tunnel once again worked to their advantage. Leland peeked around the corner and fired a shot, managing to puncture the lead Drax's armor. The attack stalled the enemy, giving Griggs the chance to strike. The dog leapt forward and tackled the weakest Drax, sinking his teeth into its throat and bringing it down. As the others moved toward Griggs, Leland opened fire with his laser, trying to hold them off. But the last Drax swung its massive arm towards Griggs. The dog dodged, but the creature was too strong. A crushing blow landed on Griggs' back, sending him crashing to the ground. Leland froze in place for a moment, seeing his loyal companion fall. A wave of anguish swept through him. "No!" Leland shouted, charging forward. He fired his weapon, unleashing shot after shot until the Drax's body was riddled with holes, finally dropping lifeless to the floor. Leland rushed to Griggs' side immediately. Griggs struggled to get up, clearly injured. Leland gently touched his dog's wounds, trying to calm him. "You're going to be okay, boy, I promise," he said, his voice trembling. Griggs let out a faint growl in response, still showing his readiness to fight. With the last of the enemies neutralized, Concord Base fell into an eerie silence. The Drax invasion had been repelled, but the victory had come at a great cost. Cradling Griggs in his arms, Leland made his way to the base's medical center. The battle was over, but the scars they carried inside would never fully heal. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.